Baka naman pwede.
Baka naman pwede?
Baka naman pwede.
Mga isyung napapanahon ating pag-usapan.
Baka naman pwede.
Gamit ang mga pananaw mula sa iba't ibang kalinangan.
Baka naman pwede.
Mula sa Institute of Philippine Culture, kami inyong samahan, tayo'y maghuntahan. Dito lang sa
Baka naman pwede.
Tuwing Huwebes, alas 3 ng hapon, dito lang sa radyo-katipunan 87.9 FM.
Nina Derek Cabe at Ia Maranyon bilang mga babaeng organisador ng mga pagkilos para sa environmental justice. Natutunan natin ang mga suliraning kinahaharap ng mga kababaihan sa pamayanan bunga ng pag-abuso sa kalikasan at kawalang katarungan. Para sa mga gustong balikan ang mga nakarang episode ng Baka Naman Pwede, mangyari lamang na bisitahin niyo ang Facebook page ng Institute of Philippine Culture at ng radyo-katipunan. Bilang bahagi ng ating month-long celebration ngayong buwan ng mga kababaihan, talakayin naman natin ngayon ang role ng mga kababaihan sa pagbuo ng climate resilient communities. At ang mga guests natin ngayon, tamang-tama sa paksang ito. Ngayong hapon kasama natin si Dr. Emma Porio ng Coastal Cities at Risk at si Dr. Liza Lim ng Institute of Social Order na kapitbahay lang rin ng IPC sa actual na face-to-face at on-site offices namin. Sa mga viewers natin sa Facebook, pwede kayong maging bahagi ng kwentuhang ito. Feel free to leave comments and questions during the discussion at babasahin namin sa ating Q&A portion mamaya. At hindi ko na papatagalin pa. Please allow me to introduce our guests for this afternoon. Una nating ipakilala si Dr. Emma Porio ng Coastal Cities at Risk in the Philippines or SICAR-PH. Dr. Porio is also the project leader and principal investigator of the Coastal Cities at Risk in the Philippines project and co-director of the Master of Disaster Risk and Resilience. She is also currently Professor Emeritus at another kapitbahay of mine, the Department of Sociology and Anthropology, and a Science Research Fellow at the Manila Observatory. She's also president of the Asia Pacific Sociological Association, or APSA, as well as the International Sociological Association Clinical Sociology Division 2019 to 2023. Ako busy, but welcome to Baka Naman Pwede for the first time, I think, Doc Emma. Hello!
Salamat, Elissa. I'm very comfortable na yung Tagalog mo pareho lang sa akin.
Nilaglag mo na tayo, wala pa tayong 5 minutes on air.
Kasi ako naisip, ninervous ako dito. Sabi ko kay Jessica last time, naku, Diyos ko, back out ako dahil yung Tagalog ko hindi maganda.
Well,
So sabi niya, okay lang daw. So thank
okay lang
you.
yan. Kung saan tayo
for
komportable.
making me feel comfortable with my deficiencies.
Ayan. O, narinig na natin si Dr. Porio, and now we move on to Dr. Liza Lim of the Institute of Social Order. Dr. Lim is currently a lecturer also at the Department of Sociology and Anthropology and the Executive Director of the Institute of Social Order, one of the oldest NGOs in the country. And her social involvement and research interests includes community development, natural resources management, environmental sociology, and local governance. So, Dr. Liza, welcome rin po to Baka Naman Pwede.
Maraming salamat. It's good to be here.
Ako siguro okay lang ako sa Tagalog kasi I think first in Tagalog tapos sinatranslate sa English.
Grabe, tayong tatlo pa talaga yung nagtagpo dito sa episode na to. Again,
Elissa,
yes,
do you
Emma.
know that, when I first came back, I met Lisa Lim, young,
really?
researcher with local resource management at NEDA.
Oh, wow. So that means that you go way back. And later on, we'll also talk
Yes.
not only about your friendship, but also the partnership between ISO and SICAR-PH, which I understand kahit across the pandemic, ay nagko-cooperate pa rin yung institutions ninyo. So again, thank you for accepting our invitation to join us this afternoon. Katulad ng nabanggit ko kanina, ang episode na ito ay bahagi ng ating month-long celebration, ng kahalagahan at gampanin ng mga kababaihan sa ating lipunan at kaunlaran. Bilang panimula, baka naman po pwede ninyo kaming kwentuhan kung ano-ano ang mga pinagkakaabalahan ninyo nitong mga nakalipas na araw-araw. Diyos. No, baka pakalipas na mga years na lang.
Years na lang.
Yun, years na lang. So baka sige, I guess because we are on the verge of going back on site and resuming research activities, maybe that's a good first question. What are you doing nowadays? Let's start with Ma'am Emma dahil actually alam ko anong doing niya nowadays. But
Diyos ko, alam ba ninyo, talking about the pandemic, yung awarding ko nga ng Professor Emeritus hindi natuloy dahil nag-lockdown tayo. But anyway, patuloy ang trabaho. I think the lockdown, gave us opportunities to have so many meetings, but also many things to do and also, to collaborate. In fact, I'm very happy that here I'm with Liza. Liza and I partnered in starting about webinars in November 2021 when I organized the Community Resilience Innovations in Asia. It was showcasing the initiatives of community-based organization and promoting climate and disaster resilience. And I was so happy to, that Elissa basically spoke in our webinar, and she talked about the women of Siroma, and they had very excellent, coastal resource management. And it so happened also that SICAR had a transdisciplinary research intern in the name of engineer Kim Sadi, and who also did some water analysis and mangrove studies in Calabanga. So that was a good partnership. And maybe Lisa, I'd like, Lisa to explain it further, yung mga partnerships namin.
Si Emma talaga, yun yung second question natin. Inunahan mo na tayo. Tinatanong ko lang kung kamusta kayo nowadays. So let's ask Dr. Lisa.
Maybe I should mention about the partnership with Lisa. I always say now to do anything, you have to be collaborate. I always tell you have around 15 or so scientists in coastal cities. So there are climate scientists, there are climate impact scientists and economists and all that stuff. And I always say to innovate is to collaborate, but to collaborate is also to navigate the systems. And I always think that, life nowadays is kind of nice. I like doing my work because I meet a lot of people and people who are committed into the same things like Lisa. They're into, community-based organizing and making people on the ground resilient and that. So I'd say, what I have been doing these past 2 years, organizing webinars all over the place. And at the same time, even with mayors, like for example, next week, we will have the Adapt Year Forum colloquium with the mayors, because Coastal Cities at Risk really is a partnership with Manila Observatory, scientists, National Resilience Council, private sector, the School of Science and Engineering, School of Social Sciences and the like. And we've been working with LGUs, community-based organizations and the like. So busy.
Busy collaborating. So that is, and navigating, as Emma said. No? So thanks, Emma. And Doc Lisa, what have you been up to nowadays?
Well, katulad din ni Emma, ganun din yung running around most of the time. but of course, majority ng aking ginagawa ay related dito sa trabaho ng Institute of Social Order, yung ISO. As you know, yung ISO kasi is diba, one of the oldest NGO, if not the oldest. So, tinatry pa rin, unang-una, tinatry pa rin na ituloy yung community organizing in the midst of a pandemic. Parang naghahanap ng paraan, paano ka ba mag-organize na wala ka doon sa community. Nandito ka sa Manila at yung mga komunidad mo ay hindi mo ma-reach kasi walang means of transportation, bawal pumunta dahil dun sa LGU. So, but on the whole, doon pa rin, social development pa rin. And dahil hindi ka makapunta sa area, part of our work also, kasama na rin ako, tsaka yung institution, is yung lobbying and advocacy na patungkol dun sa yung fishery management. Kasama namin dito yung NGOs for Fisheries Reform. Si Emma, I think, is isa sa mga magiging speaker lalo ng sa Panagat, which is kasama rin namin.
Yes.
Network ito ng fishers and NGOs na ang sinusulong ay yung pagbubuo ng isang blue agenda para i-lobby yung mga reforms ng laws concerning fisheries and fishery management. Pangarawan dito ay meron ding research na ginagawa patungkol naman dun sa ano ba yung kalagayan ng kabataan sa fishing households and communities. Particular na slant ay yung meron bang child labor sa fishery sector, sa small scale fishery sector. And then yung huli ay yung organizational concerns, primarily looking for support to our efforts. As you know, medyo yung NGO work ngayon dahil sa dami ng problema, medyo may kahirapan din, particularly in terms of mobilizing resources, linking with groups, kasi ang hirap mahirap yung context. But overall, it's an exciting thing.
Busy pa rin. No? Parang wala pa rin.
At saka yun, yung collaboration namin ni Doc Emma. Kasi dahil dahil walang tao dito sa ating sa campus, what we try to do is we maximize din na wala naman tao, so pwede bang i-maximize itong ating area and turn it into a community garden that can support naman needs of our personnel. And at the same time, isa dun sa gusto kasi namin gawin, baka pwedeng whatever products that we can produce, pwede siyang i-link dun sa mga initiatives din ng community pantries. We can provide yung source of feedings or baka pwede yun. But we're still in the testing phase. Salamat kami kay Doc Emma, so we were able to get their students also, students nila ni Alfred Narasigan under CCCAR and Arete to develop information and information education materials on urban gardening. So,
diba? Parang si Doc Liza, mas lalo pang nauna kay Emma, nasagot na niya yung baka naman pwede. O paano na?
Paano ginagawa na?
No, I just want to tell you that, maganda yung minention ni Liza about, the coastal environments, the blue future and the marine culture. Kasi, we are an island, a series of island economy. And I think now, with sea level rise, and especially with the recent event of Odette, I was really concerned. I'm now focusing on coastal environments because there are sustenance fisher folks and part-time farmers who also go fishing are really the poorest. So I think it's very good. And in fact, I was reading recently that, the marine agriculture, the ocean, they generate a lot of our food systems, but we don't pay attention to it. So I'm very happy. In fact, in the Climate Change Commission, I told CCC that I will focus on working on coastal environments because I'm partnering also with the scientists in UPV. They have UPV has marine and ocean sciences. So I'm really very happy that, yung daloy ng buhay namin ni Liza is very intertwined. And also, we teach in the department and we take about the same issues and things like that. So I would like to say that, this pandemic had given us a lot of opportunities. Like, my God, it's good that we can give webinars. We don't have to spend money on our airfare and everything. But it has also, the hazard is that you can have your webinar from 6 a.m. to 1 a.m. in the morning. So, but I think it's a good opportunity for us. But I always remember that we women in academia and, coming mostly from middle class are very privileged. And therefore, we should also share really with the women on the ground. And that's why in SICAR, we always say the women scientists produce actionable science, but we work, we collaborate with LGUs and communities. That's why I always tell people, we are a transdisciplinary action research. And I always tell my students, transdisciplinary action research, producing actionable science is informed by 3 principles. And I really want my students and my partners to think that we must co-generate or co-produce the knowledge. And if we co-produce the knowledge together with the women on the ground, with people in the LGUs, then we can also create our capacities. How do we speak and translate this? So the scientists develop their capacities to work, as well as the practitioners and professionals. And if we do this, then it is easy to own what we're doing, the enterprise as our own, and then we co-benefit. So I really think that we were trained in research methods, all this objective research and empirical. But now I really believe that research should be meaningful, has to have this. So that's what we've been doing in SICAR, that even though, we've been on lockdown, we continue to do our partnership with, like Lisa, with a garden, the garden as a space wherein you can learn, the students can learn about the environment, about climate crisis, and about food security. For example, one of the things that Lisa and I work with Alfred Marasigan in Fine Arts is that she taught her student online. If you look, by the way, you Google our website, the resilience toolkit.ph, you will see there, and I told people, one of the nice things in SICAR is that when you partner with people on the ground, the creativity just flourishes. So you will see there the community-based arts that Alfred Marasigan did. Isa Miharis created a group of youth resilience champions with Baklod Tao, teaching the young people to be connected to the environment, what are their purposes and what they can do. Ang title ng project ni Isa with the boys and girls is Ahon sa Pagbangon, Preparations for Adaptive Resilience. Si Laura Cabutya naman sa mga kababihan sa Integrated Community Food Production sa Valenzuela is talking about community-based, movement, songs, and being able to make the women conscious of their identity and their role in food production. So the reason I thought about this because I was talking with, alam mo yung mga nandoon sa disiplina villages sa Valenzuela, they were displaced by Ondoy, over 3,000 of them by the Ondoy floods. And they were organized in a disciplina village, and basically they have food gardens. And I remember precisely sa Labsan, the person was telling me, alam mo ma'am, ang tingin nila kami nagaling kami sa mga squatter, wala kaming kaalaman. Marami kaming kaalaman ma'am, marami kaming magawa. And that really led me think that, we don't only train them in terms of livelihood, but also the women on the ground must be conscious of their contribution, that each and everyone has a contribution in the making of resilient communities. Like in their case, food systems was very important during lockdown. They organized a community food pantry to serve other urban poor communities and also other middle class and upper class communities who didn't have, remember sa lockdown, ang mahal-mahal ng mga vegetables kasi dahil sa lockdown yun. So for me, working with women and working with other scientists, it's really the idea that by being together, we can work, we can connect each other's expertise, and we can be more. And, I feel that now, if you want to be, if you want to be happy, just work with others who also look at the same vision. And then we just do what we can do, and then the others take on from there. Thank you. Tama na kung dami ko na sinasabi ni Lisa.
Wag ka muna alis. Summarize ko yung mga sinabi mo. Parang, I think the main points with what Emma said, no, is really this co-production of knowledge means coming up with solutions together. And
Yes.
they don't usually have to come from, the usual
Yeah.
sources of solutions, no? You mentioned the arts, I know that you're really very interested in urban gardening, yan. So, and now also, different communities can also provide the innovation needed that we ourselves are also adapting. Ayun. So, and of course, to stay in that very positive space, sabi nga ni Emma, share the space with people with the same vision. And then, over to Ma'am Lisa. I know that you do a lot of work. I was looking at what you presented with Emma in 2020, no? Parang it was on mangroves rin, no?
Mangroves, yes.
So,
Still
maybe
continue.
from that standpoint, no, baka you can tell us a little bit more about what your communities in ISO have been doing.
Sa community naman kasi ng ISO, of course, yun nga, yung tinatanong mo yung creating climate resilient community. Actually, yung pagpasok dito, hindi naman to yung talagang unang ng ISO eh. It just flowed naturally. Kasi ang trabaho ng ISO, by the way, ISO is a social apostolate of the Society of Jesus. So, and of course, ang mandate namin is
And you are the apostle.
We are the apostles. Is promoting
Apostle.
faith that does justice. And we've been working with the fisher folks for almost 2 decades. Na ang isa din sa as you know, yung fishing household kasi, di ba, primarily nasa coastal areas yan eh. Vulnerable yan sa climate, yung extreme climatic conditions, particularly yung effects of the lives and livelihood of people. So, yung initial na nakita namin, during typhoon, itong mga area nito, yung sa flooding eh. Diba? Yung storm surges, tsunamis, etc. So, in fact, nung typhoon Ulysses, marami sa amin apektuhan. They lost their homes, they lost their boats, fishing paraphernalias. But there's one thing that's very critical, and we thought that at least that's our contribution also. And namely, wala kaming loss of lives in these areas. And the reason for this also is nakapagprepara yung mga beneficiaries dito para makaalis in time. And so in other words, they are able to do so. We attributed it to na yung in some of our work, we need to introduce yung disaster risk reduction inputs, and many of those yung aming mga partners, some of them became part of the DRRMC, tapos yung kanilang mga people's organizations, which are also became responsible also for calling attention of people pag may danger. Why is it related to women? Because many of them are women volunteers. So I guess what I'm trying to say is natural kasi ito sa kanila. We went into there because it's very natural na kailangan namin to i-deal because of the environmental protection aspect of our work. And natutok siya sa women kasi itong mga women na to, sila kasi yung they are the ones that are concerned with taking care of their children and trying to protect their families, di ba? Kaya immediately, and sila yung mga barangay health workers. So, de facto, kaagad sila doon. Na kailangan mo lang bigyan siguro ng konting kaalaman and try to structure it and give them awareness of what's happening. So, isa yun. Tapos pangalawa, kasi napansin din namin na yung mangroves, you've been asking about mangroves. natural kasing women managed kasi dito sila kumukuha ng alternative source of livelihood kung hindi nakakalabas yung mga asawa nilang fishers. So that immediately kung mangrove management yan, nasa interest nila to protect their mangroves. Kaya in a sense natural din na sila yung magiging involved and engaged dito. In fact, yung ibang mga kasama namin dun sa meron sila talagang women managed mangrove areas na deliberate yung intervention. In our case, ang intervention kasi ng ISO is both men and women. It so happened that majority of them in the organization are women na sila natural na pag uma-attend sa people's organizations dahil nag-organize ka, sila yung natitira doon sa bahay, so sila yung ma-attend in one of the men. The funny thing about it is sila yung nakakapacitate, sila yung na-empower. Therefore, sila ngayon yung pinakamarami na nagagawang mga changes in the organization, the community. They become the forefront ng mga organizations and they become leaders. At pag sila na yung leader, maraming mga dito yung for example doon sa mangrove project, dahil alam nga nila yung importansya nito at din sila kumukuha ng kanilang kabuhayan, sila din yung very staunch in terms of law enforcement. So, siyempre gusto nila matutunan yun. Secondly, we realize also na itong mga women, lalo na dun sa pagtatanim ng mangroves, sila yung mas mag-eksperimento ng, well, initially, I think people knows na yung pagat-pato yung Sonoracia alba, hinahirap siyang i-grow sa nursery. But the women are very patient, so sila yung nag-eksperimento. And such time na nakagrow na sila and then sila yung nag-aalaga nito. And then sabi nila okay lang sa kanila kasi parang nakikita nila na pagka yung nag-grow ito, it almost feels like marami sila na-accomplish and they look forward to doing the reforestation work in the future. Kaya sila din yung sila taging nagpo-protect noon, sila yung nag-a-advance noon doon sa communities. And happy to say na yung si Ruma where yung marami doon sa mangrove management project ay nandoon, malaking eksperto ng proyekto nandoon, sila yung naging second best in mangrove doon sa community. And simultaneously sila din yung mga people's organization na to, ito yung mga gusto rin mag-experiment in terms of environment friendly livelihood projects na tutulungan lang in terms of capacity building. Again, as I mentioned, many of them are women driven. So although hindi kasi ako ang feeling ko I don't want to really focus primarily on women lang kasi kung minsan nagkakaroon pa ng concern. So I will let it flow naturally na talaga ma-empower yung women naturally, but you also provide certain inputs to men in terms of gender sensitivity, but emphasizing also that both of them have role in development. Medyo mahirap din, sorry, medyo mahaba na ako. Medyo mahirap din yung kasi yung fishing is lalo sa Pilipinas, it's a male-dominated field. So therefore pag pumasok, yung pagpasok ng women actually is successful natin that they are being acknowledged as a player also in terms of fishery management. And ngayon marami na, diba? Marami ng mga kababaihan talaga yung medyo nag-emerge as leaders ng fishing communities. But marami pang work na kailangan gawin.
Elissa,
It's a wonderful narrative, Doc Liza. No, thank you for painting that picture, no, of women empowerment and participation in the fishery sector. Emma, you had a comment
Yeah.
before.
Yeah, what I'd like to do is to bring, because I've been working mostly in cities and I always talk about rural urban communities or rural urban poor communities. I'd like to say that, from my side in SICAR, I always say that, 40 to 60% of Metro Manila economy is informal economy, which means to say these are services from unpaid family labor by women, children, and those who are not in the formal sector. So for me, women are so crucial. And in fact, in my social vulnerability analysis in building, when you say, why are women important in building climate resilient communities? Because they are there at the forefront. Women and children and men in the informal sector communities have done not, they have not generated the greenhouse gas emissions, but they suffer very much from the impact of floods, impact of typhoons, and sea level rise. So, in fact, I remember we started our partnership with Mayor Esco in Manila in last year. And I remember when I was presenting, I was just saying to the mayor, who are the most vulnerable to climate impacts in Manila? They are the women who have not finished high school education, or with large family size, who live in informal sector and no security of tenure and no access to services. And I was telling the mayor, these are the people that really need so much support. And then, of course, Mayor Escob, the political person that case, he says, oh, Ma'am Emma, do not worry. I'm an MBN guy. So my investments are in education, in health, and in basic services. No? So I'm saying that, our cities, our rural communities that Elissa was talking about, women's labor. In fact, I was telling in my lecture in the DOST the other day, Mao says women hold half of the sky, okay? But I told them, if we compute the reproductive labor, if we compute the domestic unpaid labor, it might be 3/4 of the sky. And I remember the economist John Kenneth Galbraith. He said this in 1965. He said, what is not written and what is not recorded remains invisible. If GDP only takes into consideration the formal businesses, so I was telling Dean Monching Clarete, who is our head together with Randy Tuanyo in our economic sector, I said to Dean Monching, and to Randy, I said, look at this. 40 to 60% of economy, metropolitan economy, is underground. It's informal services, which means to say that women, children, and women in the services account for a lot, but they are not recognized. They are not, and I really think that unpaid family labor is one of, it's crucial to our productivity as a nation, but it's not recorded. So for me, I think we who are researchers, scientists, we have to bring into this surface, why are women so crucial in building climate resilient communities? And that's why I showcase, the work they were doing, food gardens, food pantries, because they are the ones that, are the really foundational. If you have nothing to eat, you're really, so food security, water services, these are the women that, the women they pay attention to. And as I mentioned earlier about, the women in ICFP, because of their food gardens, they have attained a certain, shall we say, dignity and pride in their work, that they support the community. So I feel that we should really recognize the contribution that building resilience starts with building the self. I was telling the women this morning, I was giving a webinar, I said, we have to feel our well-being. You cannot be supporting others when your well-being is not good. You cannot love and support others when you're not even supportive of yourself. So well-being and resilience of the self, the family, the community, and the institutions, So I would really say, I mean, it comes to, I mean, with what Lisa was saying, is that it's really collaborative, integrative approaches. But our, we are sectorally driven and disciplinarily driven in our institute. So it doesn't, so we have to be conscious that we must connect. We must connect, collaborate, and make sure that each of us, it's like, remember the banig, the banig is that, the weaving of the banig starts at the center and flows outward and then comes back. So it's really, I think, working with women and really what's the role of women in different parts of society in building resilient communities is very crucial. And everyone has an important role to do. Thank you, Melissa.
Emma, thanks, Lisa. I think parang one thing that you mentioned here is the role that local governments play also in encouraging these kinds of innovations, this kind of collaborations. Maybe you can mention some of the work that you've done with local governments that does precisely this, that looks at issues that involve not just women, but as Lisa said, no, men and governance. So have you come across any sort of innovative models that
yeah, I mean, we have two major structures in the local government in terms of building, climate and disaster resilient communities. So you have the Disaster Risk Reduction Management Office, which has 5% of the budget. Then we also have gender and development. They also have 5%. I mean, the women before us fought for that in the 1990s, that, they will have 5% of the budget. But as I work with local governments, I tell them, we have to work together. Like, for example, I will not mention the municipality. I told the God person, you have 5%. And I told the RMO, you have 5%. Why don't you work together and connect? Because you are serving the same communities, informal settlements. And then it says, but you see, sectoral driven like that. But what I'm saying basically is that I think we have resources, but we just have to weave them together to not, I think the competitive model is not very good. I think we have to be a collaborative model that what the other one is a little bit lacking, we supplement. So we have always complementary roles that Lisa was talking about, that making a community resilient is a work of everyone, male, female, children, girls and boys, the PWDs, the LGBT, everyone has a role. And I think that's what I want to emphasize. In, earlier when talking about gender, they always think it's women. And I was telling this morning in a webinar, gender is the relationship that we construct with each other. And if you want to be fair, sensitive, that means you are respectful of what the other is can do and cannot do, and then we try to collaborate together. So when I was saying about, gender sensitive is not only, that, there's so much number of men and women, that's how it is in the LGU. In the LGU, you just count the number of men. And also, because they have to return the God budget if they don't spend it. So anything there with women, will be counted. And I said, no, you have to look at the two needs of women, the practical needs, which are, food, security, housing, like that, and the strategic needs, which is the building of their capacity and to contribute and also to be recognized. They have their crucial roles in building the community, in building the family, and building the nation. So yeah, I think we have to work more that, Melissa. I mean, you're a political scientist, you know how the local government and national government agencies, Melissa and I, did an assessment of data ecosystem that will make the government more data responsive. And still, we have to work, a long way in terms of making gender relations not just about women, but about their vulnerability and their capacity, and to reduce their exposure to hazards, and to reduce the damages that happens when floods, typhoons, and now, sea level rise, it's affecting very much both men and women and their families.
Thanks,
especially
Emma.
the poor.
And right now we're coming up to the time for Q&A. So I have one question actually, which I want to direct at Lisa. But in the meantime, for the rest of our audience here on Facebook and ano yun, within 2 kilometers of Ateneo, who is getting the radyo-katipunan signal. If you have questions, please do send them in via the Facebook chat. Okay. Lisa, I wanted to go back to the communities that we were talking about earlier and ask about the time during the pandemic. Parang I think a lot of things shifted,
Yes.
Both at the community level, at the familial level. Did you see any additional opportunities for women to take on additional roles, for example, in governance or organizing during the pandemic?
Yung isang experience dun sa dun sa isang area that we're working with, kasi nung time ng pandemic, what happened was that island communities na cut off siya. So, and it so happened that the organization itself at that time was experimenting on a climate/agricultural field school. So they were trying to grow garden, vegetables, etc. What happened was that syempre close yung island, that field school and yung kanilang mga crops doon are the ones that supplies vegetable for the community. So and I think had they not experimented on it in partnership with DA, baka mas malaki yung naging problema sa food doon sa area. Tapos second, pagdating doon sa naman ng contribution ng women, many of our women leaders are part of what we call, ito yung isang innovation that we were trying to implement, part of a local research team, which is a multi-sectoral group that implements yung vulnerability assessment, so that they're part of the one that assesses the situation in the community, including yung the members of the different offices in the local government unit. So they assess the area, they do profiling, they do study and resource utilization, and then they do mapping, community mapping in the area, so that they can come up with a good picture. I think I shared it with Emma, di ba, yung aming
Liz, you talk about
systems.
the risk. I really
Yung
find
risk
the risk
vulnerability
registry that you have. The community organizers of Lisa work with me in Muntinlupa and trying to do the risk registry and really through the participatory community risk assessment. No?
And I think that's an innovation because those input into the plans of the municipal government. So, and they do maps, they post it in strategic areas in the community so that in cases like extreme situation like disaster, they can always refer to it. They can check also yung tama ba yung lugar ng ating mga relocation or evacuation sites, because in one situation we noted that yung mapa talaga pala baliktad. And had they not been able to do that, they would not have identified that the evacuation site is in a flood-prone area.
Oh no!
And I think it probably we're using the research methods that we're using here in the academe, but we're trying to explain it to them and trying to get them to at least understand what it means, and so that they would be able to share it in the community. In fact, isa sa natutuwa kami kasi yung mga old people, hindi nila naintindihan yung mapa, but yung mga elementary schools, when they point at the map, ito naintindihan nila.
There's anything that looks visual, the younger generation is smart.
So I think, and those comes from their ideas, yung mga community ideas to and again, as you mentioned, many of those are inputs from BHWs, from local leaders, which are women, kasi yung mga women naman talaga yung mga nag-iikot doon at input. And part of that, at least na-implement ito sa munisipyo, which I think would be very useful at this point, especially with the Mandanas law, diba? That provides resources that can be used in the community so that they can lobby for it also because they have the data.
Ibang episode ko ang Mandanas ko. Wag na.
Sorry. I'm jumping the gun.
Hindi ako prepared to talk
But
about
I think Liza and Melissa, I think what's very important is that women are very central. The barangay health workers and nutrition scholars, GAD committee, they are central in producing the database on the ground. That is really actionable and it's real, no?
And something that they can actually understand. Kasi yun yung kahalagahan din nung nakabase yung local research team doon sa area. We can do all of the sophisticated things that we do, but at least they can understand it. The second part is itong mga leaders na to serves as mentors to other people in the community.
Right.
So that they, instead of us organizing the community, they are the ones taking it on. And diba, joining others also to be part of the process. And as a result nga, what happened was that they were able also to lobby with the local government unit, so in some cases to sponsor coastal cleanup. Hindi lang naman siya coastal cleanup, nandun din yung mga community pantry where they distribute goods and services to other people and then also train them and organize them. So, yun nga, I wouldn't really say na but it's pretty much, I wouldn't really say that it's focused on particularly on women, but women are in the forefront of it, and we can really tap the creative capacities of women in doing all of these things.
But I think Melissa and Liza, we still have to work hard in terms of the city planning office that takes care of updating the city land use plan or municipal land use plan, doing the IIP. They value more, all this ArcGIS training and all that stuff, which I think I always tell them that the map that are made by the people and can be understood will guide them more than those, all this. I remember I went to one part in summer wherein we had to look there because I think the coordinates that were submitted to Manila was wrong. So in the map, it shows that the rural health center was in the water. So perhaps in doing the coordinates, it was not correct. So in fact, I remember going to I think one of the barangays, one of these towns in Eastern Samar, and sabi ng planner sa akin, Ma'am, sabihin mo nga sa kanila na wala sa bundok ang munisipyo namin, nandoon sa malapit sa sa dagat. So it's really that we have to this participatory mapping and the technical things about ArcGIS and remote sensing, and like we really have to assert police, no, kasi in the end, ang mamadali din yung mga CPDODR mo kung ano na lang nandyan.
Very time-bound rin kasi yung work nila rin.
Oo. So, I think we have to have trust on the people down there that they know what they're doing, that the data that they're producing, they understand it and you can utilize it. I think that's still a long way, Melissa, no?
Oh, but I can hear Mary Rosales. Local knowledge really is key that we have to really listen
of course.
To voices on the ground.
Yeah. The good thing about it is kahit na pa, halimbawa sabihin natin na mas technical yung gagawin ng but we have this data, we can cross-check. We can cross-check it and then they can actually validate. Kasi sa amin, ang learning namin talaga, it's really a long process of validation para lang mag-synchronize sila. And also with that knowledge, yung ating community can also tell the local government unit na teka, meron kaming datos, mali yung datos nyo, check nga natin. And maybe we can negotiate also. So we keep on telling also our people's organization, mga partners namin, well, so that you can demand, you also have to you have to also be able to contribute something to them, di ba? Kasi at least kung may contribution ka, meron kang karapatang mag-demand. Kasi kung wala, baka siyempre pakiusap yun eh. Pero kung if you gave them something and then they need to reciprocate, diba? So, and wala silang ano sa'yo. So that you can really bargain.
Hey, and
So-
grabe, matatapos na yung oras natin.
Lapit na.
Chikahan lang talaga, no? And I think this is where we sort of move along, and I want to just stress something that Emma was telling me before this program. She goes, Melissa, I'm going to talk about communities of practice. Sabi ko, ikaw ba yung host? sabi niya, I want to talk about communities of practice. So Emma, this is your big chance to talk about communities of practice, maybe locating your own work.
No,
Before we want to close.
No, kasi I think tayo, you know, we think, okay, we are here in the academia, we are here in the scientific institution like that. And then they are the community. When actually, there are different communities of practice and each really has something to contribute. But, you know, I will not talk about for that like that, but I'm really more interested because we don't have time anymore. I'm really more interested in what can different groups of men and women, you know, young, old, girls, boys can really do. And now, because of my work in climate change, wherein we really, you know, the earth is getting hotter and warmer. That's why I always tell my class, when I let them compute their carbon and water footprint, I always tell them, are you cooling the earth or heating the earth? Are you consuming so much processed foods and that, you know, it contributes to the heating the earth? That's why now my advocacy really is that we should just clean and green. We just cool our sidewalks, we green the city, we cool the city, especially now, you know, summer is fast approaching. Manila is so brown, and I really think that, you know, we can do a lot in each of our, you know, in our own spaces. I was struck by what one saying that if we shift from consumption to production, starting maybe with our gardens and producing our, you know, growing our, you know, whatever you can grow, or even just, you know, like here in the village, I told people, I'm creating a butterfly garden at the back so that the bees and the butterflies can pollinate. In fact, in Europe, they have now been a ban on pesticides because production has gone down because of the use of pesticides. And really pollination, the pollinators are very big in the food production. So I'd say, you know, as I will tell everybody, just make your space and your own life, construct the well-being of yourself, that it may also support the well-being of others, whether it is socially, psychologically, technically, and the others. So, yun lang, you know, nandoon na tayo sa Pwede na. Pwede.
O si Doc Lisa muna kasi
Nandoon na tayo sa Pwede na, no? So, yun ang
teka lang, wag ka muna si Doc Lisa naman. Doc Lisa, baka we can start with you. At the end of each program, we say, baka naman pwede. And then we put forth our own recommendations. Baka naman pwede. Kayo na po ang magsimula nito.
Siguro ako lang, dalawa. Sabi ko nga, I wrote it down kasi parang mahirap yung baka pwede. Kasi yung what I wrote down dito sa is that if we designed it program on climate risk resiliency, we need to engage everybody. We need to engage the whole household. We need to acknowledge the nature and competencies of each, particularly the women. Women particularly because they have innovative ways of dealing with the context that they find themselves. So yung I guess yung baka rin naman pwede, baka bigyan din ang pangangailangan ng kaalaman at kakayanan para pagyamanin yung natural na talento nito ng mga kababaihan, particularly sa rural sector, because they have a lot to give in terms of talents, in terms of creativity. The way that I see them, talagang makikita mo yung capacity also to be very resilient, particularly when it concerns their family, and also be very creative in responding to the situation. the patience even. Sabi ko nga, simpleng method. Sorry, sa mangroves or example, yung isa-isahin mong bukasin yung seed for the experiment. Natural na parang hindi yan maiisip ng iba, only women that are so very patient, so very sa details ang makakaisip ng mga ganung klase ng very simple, very practical, but at the same time we need to be able to give them baka pwede na yun ang tingnan natin, pag-aralan natin.
Thank you. And Emma, the title is Baka Naman Pwede, ha? Hindi pwede ba? Your turn. Your
Sabi
turn
ko,
with Baka
sabi
Naman
ko
Pwede.
earlier, sinabi ko kay na pwede. I mean, like for me, naisip ko, if only each of us will be conscious in terms of, how much plastic are we generating? How much, food are we consuming in terms of processing? I think para sa akin that I really believe now that we just start greening our spaces and it will cool our cities. Let's be conscious of, as what Lisa was saying also, that we also have to think about how are we constructing the knowledge for resilience. And I always say that we start basically with the resilience of the self at saka resilience of the family. And also I find in my work with the informal sector families that building social capital and trust networks is so central to collaboration. And being committed to, making our environment and making our, communities more resilient means that you have to be more greener. You should not be, like for example, I think Melissa, you know this. Remember when we went to General Santos, I took a picture of the mangroves, and because I'm part of the Philippine native trees up close and personal, there's over 3,000 species of trees, but only 3,500 and only around 700 or 800 are documented. And now basically I'm really committed to just reforesting using native and indigenous species, not the invasive ones. So pwede. I mean, when you say baka pwede, I really think that maraming pwede nating gawin. So in our everyday life, I think we should not be wasting. Like now, I always say, it's nice now. I can give a lecture and I don't have to, I will not increase my carbon footprint and my water footprint. So pwede, marami tayong gawin. Like yung what Lisa and ISO are doing, like we have the gardens there as a demonstration that the garden can be used and into biodiversity. And in fact, we're hoping this coming semester that we can work with University Open U at Los Baños, and basically putting some plants and trees there along the side where there are the creeks. I think we have to think that we have to protect those places and the like. So marami tayong magawa. I think, like for example, in the campus, there's the Ateneo Wild that allows the students to know the biodiversity of the place, because biodiversity loss is really one of the threats. So pwede, marami. I think marami tayong magawa.
Ayun. So pinalitan na po ni Emma ang title ng programang ito, Pwede. At dito nagtatapos ang Baka Naman Pwede. Maraming salamat muli sa ating mga guests na sina Dr. Emma Porio at Dr. Liza
Hello.
Lin. Next week,
Salamat.
Thank you. Next week, pag-usapan natin ang gampanin ng mga kababaihan bilang mga leader sa kani-kanilang mga komunidad, kasama sina Captain Filomena Cinco ng Estero de San Miguel, Manila, Marilio Aquino, Kabakay, Caloocan, Cynthia Espiga ng Sama-Sama Quezon City at Nizea Estrada ng International Development and Security Cooperation. Mangyari lamang na bisitahin ang Facebook page ng IPC para sa mga darating na episode. Sana po ay makasama namin kayo sa susunod na Webes. Baka naman pwedeng i-like ninyo ang Institute of Philippine Culture sa Facebook para sa iba-iba naming announcements at events. Hanggang sa susunod, ako si Melissa Lau ng IPC. Patuloy tayong mag-ingat mag-iingat at laging tandaan kung may gustong maunawaan, baka naman pwede nating pag-usapan. Maraming salamat po. Thanks, Emma. Thanks, Doc Lisa.
Thank you. Sana punta tayo dyan, Lisa. Oh. Ang
Saan?
ganda na. Saan yung ganda?
Pwede.
Baka naman pwede.
Baka naman pwede?
Baka naman pwede.
Mga isyung napapanahon ating pag-usapan.
Baka naman pwede.
Gamit ang mga pananaw mula sa iba't ibang kalinangan.
Baka naman pwede!
Mula sa Institute of Philippine Culture, kami inyong samahan, tayo'y maghuntahan. Dito lang sa
Baka naman pwede.
tuwing Huwebes, alas 3 ng hapon, dito lang sa radyo-katipunan 87.9 FM.
3 o'clock prayer. You died, Jesus, but the source of life flowed out for souls, and the ocean of mercy